Hey, what's up everyone? It's Tim. Today I'm working on the Jetta again, and it's time to do the spark plugs. So we finally hit 45,000 miles, which is about 5,000 over what the manual says to do them at. Some people on the forums say go up to 60. We're just gonna stick to 45. So today I'm gonna show you what tools you need and how to do the job. And also, if this is your first time on the channel, this is a 2018 Volkswagen Jetta Sport, and it has the 1.8 liter engine in it. All right, so first up on our parts list here, we have our spark plugs. I did the upgraded ones. I got the laser iridium ones. I have some plans to get a tune here in a little bit, so I wanted to get a little bit better than OEM spark plug. But below you can see the Volkswagen part number. And if you want to go with these as well, here is the part number for those. Next up, you're gonna need just some sockets to get a few of the 10 millimeters off, which is right here. You're also gonna want an extension with a spark plug socket, or you can get the spark plug sockets that are just already long. A flathead screwdriver for some of the retaining clips. Last but not least, you're gonna need a torque wrench to about 18 foot-pound to get the spark plugs in correctly. All right, so first step, we're gonna take the engine cover off, which is held on just in the corners by a few little rubber grommets, and that pops off real easy. So now that we have the engine cover off, we have the ignition coils sitting right here, and the spark plugs are located underneath those. And what we're basically gonna have to do is take off the wiring, which are leading into each coil, and then take the coils out, and then remove each spark plug, and then put everything back the way we found it. All right, so now all four of the grounds, the 10 millimeters, were taken off the top of those. Next up, we have to get these clips off to free up the wiring off the ignition coils. So these clips are a little tricky. What you wanna do is kind of get your thumb in there or finger and pull back on this clip until you hear a click. And it's really faint on some of them. You can feel it. That one was pretty loud. And you can actually feel them snap. These I might have to go through and do again. But after you get them snapped, so this one snapped really good, basically you're just gonna use both your hands and really just kind of work it off the coil. When you get the clips done, you should be able to pull these off just like that. I'd use two hands to actually get them out. And then you do have to push on the intake a little bit to give yourself some room to actually get this whole wiring rack thing out of the way. Next up, we're gonna have to take the last 10 millimeter off each of these ignition coils. And for that, you're actually gonna have to use either a 10 millimeter wrench or a deep socket. That way you can actually get all the way down to that one. These last bolts were taken out, and it was just a 10 millimeter. So all those are out, and now we're actually ready to pop out the coil, which you just wiggle out. And once the coil's out, the spark plug is right down in there. And you're gonna wanna do one at a time, that way you're not leaving these exposed to anything falling down in them. So now we'll go ahead and get our socket and extension set up to get that spark plug out. And here's a quick comparison of the old plug next to the new plug. Plug loaded up into the socket, and we're basically just gonna very gently put it down into the socket. And you basically don't want to use any tools at this point. That way you can feel if it's cross-threading or if it feels like it's going on smooth, which it does. And we're just going to keep on finger tightening it until we can't anymore. So that was the point of resistance. We're going to go ahead and get our torque wrench and torque it down to 18 foot-pound. And take our ignition coil and feed it right back down. And just make sure you push it all the way down and that the seal, the rubber seal, is actually around the hole down there. And once that's flush and seated properly, we can move on to the next three. And once we finish those, we're gonna do the same steps and put everything back together. All right, so all the old spark plugs are out and the new ones have been put in along with the ignition coils. And I went ahead and put those 10 millimeter studs back on to hold each ignition coil back into place. Next up, we got to put these wires back on each coil. And for that, I'm going to need 2 hands. And remember, it's helpful to kind of push back on this plastic intake a little bit to get it back into place. And when you get it on there, you just want to make sure you hear a snap of these little clips hooking on to those little notches that are on each ignition coil. Have all the wires back on. It actually goes on a lot easier than it comes off. And all 4 of those clips are clipped back into place. We just need to go ahead and start putting the ground wires back on and just secure them with the 10 millimeter nut on each one. All right, now that all those are tight, the last thing left to do is go ahead and put the cover back on. And that's all there is to it.